Skycam maneuver has started. About 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Napahanga ang buong mundo sa makasaysayang paglapag ng Perseverance Rover ng NASA sa planetang Mars noong February 18, 2021. Pagkatapos ng 7 buwan o halos 300 million miles na paglalakbay. Kasabay na makasaysayang pangyayaring ito sa mundo ng astronomiya ay siyang pagsikat ng ilang mga Pilipinong naging bahagi ng proyektong ito. Isa na rito si Gregorio Villar III, 33 taong gulang, isang systems engineer na siyang operations lead ng Entry, Descent, and Landing o EDL team ng Perseverance Rover.
Heat shield set.
Ating nakilala si Gregorio at nagpaunlak ng kanyang istorya ng buhay.
So thank you so much for doing this.
Okay. My name is Gregorio Villar III, and I was born and raised in Long Beach, California.
Parehong Pilipino ang magulang ni Gregorio, ngunit siya ipinanganak at lumaki sa Long Beach, California. Siya ay tumira sa Pilipinas sa edad na 13 taong gulang.
My mom is from Tandang Sora, Quezon City, and then my dad is from Ususan, Taguig. And I actually went to prep there.
Muli naming binalikan ang ilang mga natatandaang karanasan habang siya ay narito sa Pilipinas.
When I was younger, my parents divorced when I was 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of my childhood between my mom and my dad.
Mm.
But when I was turned 13, my dad was living in Bahagi City at the time. And so my parents wanted me to, get away from America, spend time with my dad. And at the time, they told me that they wanted me to get away from the bad gangs in America.
Okay.
But I think it was the right choice because it's my time to spend with my dad. And I think the education in the Philippines for high school was better than in America. So I think that was a good choice to go to the Philippines for high school.
Yeah.
Hindi man naging madali para kay Gregorio ang buhay, nagpapasalamat pa rin siya at mayroong magagandang alaala ang kanyang naging pagtira dito sa Pilipinas. Isa sa mga hindi rin malilimutang alaala ay ang mga taong siya ay nag-aral sa St. Louis University sa Baguio City, kung saan dito tinapos ang high school.
Key part of my life. And that was tough because of several reasons. One, it was a culture shock, right? It was me actually moving to the Philippines for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first day of school, I was one of the shorter ones. And, in the Philippines, you line up and the shortest ones in the front, they would all just like, oh, it's a guy from America.
Yeah.
And of course, they would pick on me at first, right? But I do remember my best friend, his name is Paulo Baliano. Immediately, when I came into the front of the line, he put his, I think it's called akbay, right? He put his arm around me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he just took me in right away. And I'm very grateful for him because he showed me how to maneuver through life, I guess, on the streets.
Dagdag pa ang kahirapan sa pagsalita sa wikang Filipino.
Because I was not really good at Filipino. I understood it, of course, yung kapag pinapagalitan ako ng mga magulang ko, nung bata pa ako. But I did not know how to speak. So that was a huge challenge for me.
Ngunit, naitawid naman ng maayos ang 4 na taong pag-aaral dito sa Pilipinas.
Luckily, we had some tutors to help me out. So I got better over time. And so I adjusted with understanding the language, getting better in my classes.
Right.
I was always good in math and science, so I was almost near the top or almost the top of math and science.
Pagkatapos ng high school, ay bumalik na siya sa Amerika. Ngunit kung may pagkakataon, ay gusto muling makabalik sa Pilipinas.
I miss everyone.
Okay,
Let's
that's
see, I
good to know.
graduated in 2003,
Mhm.
and since then I was trying to go back every 2 years or so, but I've been working on this Mars mission, and it took up a lot of my time the past 8 years. So I think the last time I came back was 2016. So I want to come back as soon as possible. As soon as the Philippines is open, I will be there first thing. Like I'm done with this mission and I'm ready to go back. But I miss everyone, my friends, my family, the food, just everything. Mostly friends and family because I grew up there.
Growing up naman in the US, studying college and everything, what was your initial goal? What made you push through with a career with astronomy?
Okay, that is a good question because it was never really direct. When I was growing up, I had a cousin, one of my kuyas, who I really looked up to.
Yeah.
And whenever he would say he wanted to be something, I would just copy him. So he would say, I want to be a doctor. So I would say, oh, I want to be a doctor. I didn't know what he was talking about. I was just a kid. But one day he said, I want to be an astronomer. And I said, okay, well, I want to be an astronomer too. And I did not really know what that meant at the time. But again, growing up, I was really good at math and science, and I loved space. Like any nerd, like movies like Star Trek and Star Wars. So Apollo 13. So I knew that I wanted to do something in space.
Aminado si Gregorio na may mga pagkakataong naiiba-iba ang mga gustong gawin sa buhay noong siya ay bata pa. Base sa kung ano ang gusto ng iba. Ngunit di kalaunay napagtanto na ang puso ay talagang para sa space exploration.
I don't know if this is what I want to do. So my mom and my uncle sat me down. I remember we were in a diner. It's like an American diner with burgers and fries. And after we finished eating, my uncle said, Gregory, you're really smart, and you don't have to do what other people want you to do. You should do something you love to do. So then I thought about it, and I said, I'm good in math. I love science, so I want to try physics. And that's where it all started. I wiped away my first 2 years of college, and I started over again with physics. As I was going through my physics career, when I was a junior in college, I applied for a NASA scholarship, and luckily that scholarship came with an internship at a NASA center of my choice. That's where my career started.
Ngunit hindi rito natapos ang mga pagsubok ni Gregorio sa pagtahak ng karera sa mundo ng space exploration.
After I got my degree in physics, I thought I was going to go to graduate school for physics, like to get a PhD. But when I tried to take the entrance exam for graduate school, I basically failed. And that's the reason why I took it when I was an intern at NASA. So I failed the entrance exam for physics graduate school and thought maybe this isn't for me. And that's why I switched to engineering. I said maybe let me try engineering. So I emailed a bunch of bosses at JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I emailed, I think, 125 bosses. And half of them responded saying, oh, you have a really impressive resume, but you're not quite the candidate we're looking for. Only 2 of them said, can you come interview? And only 1 hired me. And so, I got really lucky, I guess, and that person hired me, and I did not go physics anymore. I just went through engineering.
And it takes courage and I guess perseverance to
Perseverance.
Yeah, perseverance to push through. If this is not
That's
for
right.
me, I'll do something else.
Nakahahangang isipin ang mga pinagdaanang pagsubok ni Gregorio bago nakamit ang tagumpay na tinatamasa ngayon. Kung hindi nagsumikap at nagtiwala sa sarili, hindi natin siya makikilala bilang isang bahagi ng isang makasaysayang pangyayari sa mundo ng astronomiya.
Applicant indicates chute deployed.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the sands of past life.
Ipinagdiwang ng buong mundo ang makasaysayang mission to Mars gamit ang Perseverance Rover. Nagbubunyi rin ang mga Pilipino dahil may ilang mga Pinoy ang naging parte ng pangyayaring ito.
That was a really big event that happened in history, right? It was really a human accomplishment, even though there are people like me who are Filipinos.
You made headlines here in the Philippines
I
for
did?
being one.
Oh.
Yeah, you did. For being one of the
Okay.
Filipino Americans who was involved in the recent Perseverance rover landing on Mars. And of course, we're all wondering, what was your role in NASA's project? Can you
Okay.
specify if there's a layman's term, if that's
Sure,
available?
of course,
What is
yeah.
entry, descent, and landing system specifically?
Yes, so entry, descent, and landing, or we call that EDL, the first letter of each.
EDL.
There are thousands of scientists and engineers who work on Perseverance. There are people who build the rover, like mechanically build it. There's a team that is responsible for launching the rover from the ground up. There's a team responsible for flying the rover to Mars. There's a team responsible from that landing the rover, so when it gets to Mars and landing it on the ground. And there's a team that operates the rover when it's at Mars. Entry, descent, and landing is the phase of the mission where we land the rover.
Okay.
And so that takes about 50 to 100 people working over 8 to 10 years. And our job is to safely get the rover that's flying through space, traveling at like 12,000 miles an hour to the surface where it's going to be 0 miles per hour
All right.
in just 7 minutes.
Wow.
So our job is to get something really fast to slow down in just 7
Yeah.
minutes. And that's incredibly difficult. And really, it looks like magic when we do that. It just means that I am part of the team that's responsible for landing the rover on Mars.
Ayon kay Gregorio, hindi ganun kadali ang kanilang naging trabaho sa hanay ng EDL team. Dahil hindi naman ito parang robot na mayroong kang kontrol na iko-command na lamang at susunod na agad dahil mayroong 10 minutong delay ang komunikasyon.
So it's just like
That's right.
joystick that you maneuver it.
That's a good question because a lot of people think there's a robot and we control robots.
Yeah.
right? But there's a problem with doing that on Mars. Something further away like Mars, when you send a signal to go forward, that signal takes 10 minutes to get to Mars. For something like landing, entry, descent, and landing, it has to do it by itself. It's done all by itself because we don't have time to joystick it through Mars.
Mm-mm.
And so that's why it's extra challenging, because for years we have to build a system with actual hardware and actual software that will work by itself when it gets to Mars. And that is completely crazy.
Hindi dito nagtatapos ang trabaho ng EDL team sa pangunguna ni Gregorio.
So there's a whole team of us landing folks working with the team that's flying the rover to Mars. And we're just monitoring the spacecraft to make sure that it's still staying healthy. But also, when we get to Mars, we need to aim for a target. So
Right.
we're watching the spacecraft, and if it's not going to make the target, we tell the flight team to move it a little bit by using our little rocket engines to make the target exactly.
Mm-mm.
And so the landing team is doing operations while waiting, and we're just getting ready for the actual landing event to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to work.
Bakit nga ba Perseverance ang ibinigay na pangalan sa rover na ito?
So the naming of rovers in history, or at least the past few rovers, the way it works is about a year or two before launching the missions, there is a nationwide contest. So NASA opens it up to elementary school students, I believe, and they have kids propose names for the next rover. And when they give names, they have to write an essay on why they think that should be the next rover name. And so a kid named the rover Perseverance, and this was before the pandemic, and it ended up being such a great name, right? Because we all had to persevere through the pandemic to launch the rover, fly the rover, and land the rover on Mars.
Great.
In this room on launch day at L-20 minutes.
Tulad ng palagiang sinasabi ni Gregorio na hindi magiging matagumpay ang misyong ito kung hindi dahil sa pagtutulungan ng lahat ng bahagi ng proyektong ito na may kanya-kanyang gampanin. Tulad na lamang din ng iba pang Filipino-Americans na nakatuwang sa proyektong ito na sila Genevieve Yang, nakabahagi sa Mission Control Team, at si Edward Gonzalez, na kabilang naman sa Communications Systems Team.
Two more Filipinos in the team, but you guys work in a separate department, if I can call it that. So how many people were involved in this project?
I would say there's easily thousands of engineers. I worked on the last rover, the Curiosity rover, and I think even just operating the rover on Mars took about 800 people. But that's just operations. You forget that there's also the 10 years before that it took to build and test and launch the rover.
Putting a spacecraft together that's going...
Taong 2013 nang simula ng NASA ang proyekto ng Perseverance Rover o Percy kung tawagin ng mga taga-NASA.
Perseverance came because Curiosity was such a success. So Curiosity landed in 2012, and soon after, NASA headquarters said that again. It was about 8 years.
Ngunit, ano nga ba ang misyon ng Perseverance Rover sa planetang Mars?
It's good that you mentioned Curiosity Rover, because I'm gonna ask, is it still online? I heard it was designed to explore the Gale crater on Mars. What is the Perseverance? Yes. What is the Perseverance Rover designed to explore?
All right, so Curiosity is still operating on Mars, thank God. It's been operating for 8 years now, right? More than 8 years, which is amazing. It is exploring an area called Jezero Crater, and it's going to be doing really cool science. One of the main new things that Perseverance will do is collect samples. So whenever we talk about Mars exploration, kind of the holy grail is, of course, to go there as humans.
Yes.
But aside from that is to bring back something from Mars. We have never done that before in history. So one of Perseverance's goals is to collect samples so that in the future, another mission can grab the samples and send them back to Earth.
All right.
So that's going to be one of the goals of Perseverance.
Dagdag pa ni Gregorio na ang misyong ito ay maaaring makatulong upang makapaghanda sila sa pagpapadala ng tao sa Mars sa hinaharap.
We have an instrument, it's called MOXIE, M-O-X-I-E, and that's really cool because MOXIE will breathe in the Martian air, which is carbon dioxide, it's not oxygen, and it will process it and breathe out oxygen. So we're going to try to create oxygen on Mars, and that's going to be very helpful because in the future, humans are going to need oxygen on Mars to, one, breathe, and two, for rocket fuel.
Dagdag pa ni Gregorio ang malinaw na pagpapaliwanag kung bakit tuwing 2 taon lamang ang pinakamainam na paggalugad sa planetang Mars.
You can't just go anytime because, we have a sun, right? And Earth goes around the sun.
Yeah.
Earth goes around the sun. And Mars goes around the sun too, right? But sometimes Earth and Mars are on opposite ends of the sun. So, for example, my head is the sun. If they're on opposite sides, they're too far away. But every 2 years, they are near on the same side of the sun, so they're closer. And that's when you want to try to go to Mars, when they're close to each other.
8 taon ang iginugol nila sa proyektong Perseverance Rover, kaya hindi masukat, hindi maipaliwanag ang naramdaman nang ito ay naging matagumpay.
What was the feeling? How did you feel about the successful landing of the Perseverance rover on Mars?
Oh, it's hard. It's really undescribable. Truly, right? I can, of course, tell you it's surreal and exciting and sad. It's really a combination of all those emotions, but it's really hard to appreciate it, unless you go through it. And the reason why I say this is because imagine working on something for close to 10 years, right?
Okay.
And you don't know, well, you do know, but there's a chance that this thing will not work. And that is so heart crushing, right? If it did not work. My experience on Perseverance was very different because I was learning more about the landing system over 8 years. So over 8 years, I got more and more scared because the more and more I learned that this is just absolutely crazy. And on top of that, there's a little backstory. On landing night, the whole team was monitoring the landing event. And as Perseverance was going through Mars, we all had a job to tell the world what was happening. So someone would say, the parachute has opened. And another person would say, the heat shield separated. And as we were practicing this, I had one of the last call outs, which basically says that we're stable on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that never worked in all of our dress rehearsals.
Oh my gosh.
So much. I was stressing out.
Hindi biro ang kabang naramdaman sa araw ng landing.
About 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO.
Luckily, on the day of landing, I was such a mix of emotions because my colleagues were calling out things that were happening. And I was holding back tears because I was thinking, oh my God, this is working. But then 30 seconds later, I would tell myself, wait, focus. Your job is not done yet. Like, Gregory, your job's not done yet. So I would focus. And then I hear someone else say something that goes well. And I start to almost tear again. And then I said, oh, wait, no, focus. And so, 6 minutes goes. And yes, and it started to work. And I was looking at it for like 30 seconds to make it was correct. All of a sudden, I said what I had to say, which was RIMU stable. And then that signaled Swati, who's the main commentator. She was like the Indian lady, colleague. She said touchdown confirmed. And I just cried for, I think it was a good 30 seconds.
Heat shield set.
Luckily, on the day of landing,
Hindi ko mapigilan ang paghanga kay Gregorio. Kitang-kita ang kanyang dedikasyon sa kanyang trabaho.
It's historical, I mean, right? To be able to be part of that team, it's very, very amazing. It's really inspiring.
Sa ngayon, abala pa rin si Gregorio at ang iba pang bahagi ng proyektong ito sa pag-oobserba at iba pang kailangang gawin.
I'm mostly
You're
just
done.
sleeping now because I'm trying to. So on Curiosity, I was part of the team that operated Curiosity, and I believe just today or yesterday we moved one of our wheels for the time. So we're just doing little movements here and there before we start to do big movements like driving further, drilling ruts. All comes a little later. It's been 2 weeks now. Today or yesterday we moved one of our wheels for the time. So we're just doing little movements here and there before we start to do big movements like driving further, drilling ruts. all comes a little later.
Parachute has deployed and we're seeing...
Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars.
Bilang isang systems engineer sa NASA, paano nga ba ang takbo ng kanyang buhay sa isang pangkaraniwang araw?
So a day in the life would be, this is pre-COVID, of course. You know, you wake up on a regular day. You'd wake up. Let's see. Let me get specific. I would wake up. I would tell Google to play my Good Morning playlist, and so I'd hear the same song every morning when I wake up. I would heat up a bowl of oatmeal, get ready for work, and I would drive to work. And when I get there, it's usually a lot of meetings early on. So it's maybe like 6 to 8 hours of meetings, answering emails. But as part of systems engineers, we do a lot of testing. So we have simulators, like spacecraft simulators. We call them test beds. And they're just imagine a room filled with a lot of electronics and simulators. And we pretend to do a bunch of landing on these computers to see that it actually works.
Ilang taon na rin na nagtatrabaho si Gregorio sa NASA. Bukod sa mga tagumpay na nakamit at patuloy na aabutin, ang NASA ay tinuturing na rin niyang pangalawang tahanan. Ang mga katrabaho ay higit pa sa kaibigan ang turingan.
I mean, I'll tell you two sides, which is really the whole day. You know, we really built a family, especially within the landing team. And I say that because, you know, most of the day from 8 in the morning till 5 p.m., we're all in meetings, answering emails, doing some testing in the simulator. But we loved being a family too. So before COVID, we would have holiday photos, right? One time we had a colleague who left for vacation and we filled her whole cubicle with balloons to the very top. It was, I think, like 600 or 700 balloons. So we do have fun, including work. And that's because, you know, we work so hard during the day.
Bukod sa proyektong Curiosity Rover noong taong 2012, kilala rin si Gregorio sa kanyang naging papel sa pangunguna sa pagtest ng Mars parachute sa largest wind tunnel na siyang gamit ng Perseverance Rover landing nitong 2021.
I heard that there is a possibility that NASA is planning to land a crew on the moon by 2024 and Mars by 2030, that you have applied for the astronaut program. Are you aiming to be part of this crew?
You know, when I was a kid, it's pretty obvious. One of my dreams was to go into space. And we'll see is just a blanket of stars, right? And that's what happens when you enter space. And he was just really quiet. And his colleague said, "What's wrong?" And Will said, "You don't understand. I've been waiting for this my whole life." And so when I saw that as a kid, I said, I am going to space one day, and that's what I want to do. So that is the goal. I've applied twice now. So I'm now in my second round of applications. So I am hopeful to go one day, but you know, as you get older, your priorities in life change. I was much more excited as a kid, definitely college, but when you get older, you know, you might want to start a family and maybe not want to leave that family on Earth.
Ngunit ayon kay Gregorio, mahirap at talagang dadaan ka sa butas ng karayom upang makapasok ka sa programang ito.
You know, I don't know where my life is going to take me just yet, but I definitely, if I had the chance to go into space, I would love to go.
Marami pa ang plano pagdating sa usapin ng karera. Marami pa ang gustong tahakin, ganun rin sa personal na buhay.
You know, I mean, again, we've been working on this for 8 years or so. Some people are moving on to the next project, but for at least for the first few months, where I want to take it a little easy before I hop onto the next mission. So right now, unfortunately, we're in a pandemic, but I want to spend more time with friends and family. As soon as hopefully the world opens up a little bit, I want to travel more. Before COVID, I traveled to, I think, 17 countries, and I just love traveling. I love meeting people around the world. I love eating everyone's food. I love exploring different cultures. So that's something I really do miss, and that I'm hoping to get maybe at the end of this year or starting next year. In terms of a career, I'm probably going to end up on the next mission. I'm still I haven't thought about what I want to do next, and my bosses are kind of asking, what do you want to do? Like, there's a lot of work to be done. And I'm like, I'm trying to sleep. Just let me sleep for a second. But it's likely going to be the next mission. So I mentioned that Perseverance is collecting samples.
Right.
We are now working on the next mission called the Sample Retrieval Lander. And that mission will go and pick up the samples to go bring it back to Earth.
Ikinagagalak ni Gregorio ang pagbaha ng suporta mula sa mga kababayang Pinoy para sa kanya.
I would say, thank you for the support and watching the mission land, but this is just the beginning. And I hope that this inspires a lot of the younger generations, because I heard that we now have a Philippine Space Agency, and that is super exciting. And I hope that we can use this as motivation to further that program, right? When Neil Armstrong landed, that really inspired the world. And so, I'm just one of a few Filipinos who work at NASA, and I just hope that the Philippines will take this as inspiration to achieve similar things, right?
Hindi madali, ngunit dahil sa pagpupursige at disiplina ni Gregorio, ay malayo ang narating ng kanyang napiling karera. Kaya ang kanyang mensahe sa mga kabataang Pinoy na nagnanais rin na magkaroon ng kaparehong kapalaran.
Yeah, so for those of you for the younger folks in the Philippines, just remember that you're the future. You're literally the future. And really anything is possible as long as you work hard enough and put your mind to it. I know that sounds, again, kind of like a cliche, but it's true, right? Like, nothing is done without hard work, and that's very important. Find something you love to do.
Ganon rin ang kanyang paalala sa lahat tungkol sa pagkakamali o pagkakadapa sa mga hamon ng buhay.
So remember that it's okay to fail, but the important thing is that you actually try. And when you fail, make sure you get back up and keep trying, because you will fail, but the important thing is to just keep on going.
Nakabibilib ang mga tagumpay na nakakamit ni Gregorio. Ganon rin ang karangalang ibinibigay niya bilang isang Pilipino. Sa bawat pagsusumikap na ginagawa ay katumbas na pagpupunyaging hindi matatawaran, hindi mababayaran ng kahit magkanong halaga ng salapi ang karangalang ito. Wala akong ibang maramdaman kundi ang paghanga at pagmamalaki. Walang ibang tanging masasabi kundi iba talaga ang Pinoy. Ako si Angela Lagunsad at ito ang Istorya.
An incredible, remarkable engineering achievement, and I am just so proud of this team.
Heat shield set.
Perseverance is now slowed to subsonic.
Ako si Gregorio Villar III, at ako ay isang engineer sa NASA.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance